Okay, hello and welcome to another Zoom group. If we're going to do a meditation now, so if you don't want to do the meditation, skip forward about 15, 20 minutes and you can pick it up there when we get into questions, comments, and that kind of thing. But even though you're watching the video, you're very welcome to do the videos, to do the meditation as well. It's it's very good. So when I meditate, I'd like to just close my eyes. I don't like to get into a meditative position. I like to take a snapshot of where my body is. And if I get into a special meditation position, I'm going to miss a lot. So I just close my eyes. So if you want to just close your eyes. And then depending on where you are with meditation, if you're new to meditation, then it's good to just scan your body, like I say in the daily meditations, just scan your body from your head down to your feet, back up again, very slowly, very gently. Anywhere you find tension, just breathe it away. If you're familiar with that and you've been doing that for a couple of years, like what I do when I close my eyes is immediately whatever part of me is the least uncomfortable will make its presence felt. So it's almost like if, when you close your eyes, it's kind of dark in there. It's like that part of me will be illuminated sensationally, meaning the sensation will be very heightened. So either or is fine. I'll just draw your attention to a couple of different places that I've found have a tendency to be tight or can be hard to feel the sensation in. So for me, nearly always the first place that gets my attention is my abdomen. My abdomen will nearly always go, I'm not actually that tight. I'm not actually that loose. I could be looser. You could let go a bit. So I'll breathe and I'll let go a bit more into my abdomen. And my abdomen is a big area. So, it goes all the way from my pelvic floor up to underneath my respiratory diaphragm. And different parts, there's a lot of infolding and twisting and turning in there with the intestines and with the fascia. So there's plenty to let go of because there's quite a bit of conditioning, in society for us to hold our tummies in. But for meditation, the more relaxed you are, the clearer you can drop into the mystery. So no one's looking at you. You just let your tummy flop. And breathing is good to highlight that. So take some nice deep breaths deeply into yourself. That'll kind of show up any parts of you that you're holding. Another good place to put your attention is your heart area. Not so much that it will feel tight. Maybe it will, but often it's not. It's an area that is kind of hard to feel a sensation in. And I've found, for me anyway, the way into it is to begin to think about expansion. So I kind of start with my pericardium, which is the kind of sac that my heart sits in. And I think about that relaxing and expanding. And that seems to begin something, begin a feeling of expansion in my heart. And the more it kind of expands, it transitions into an energetic feeling. And I can get a sense of the field that my heart puts out. It can start reasonably small, you know, a little bit in front of me, a little bit behind me, and then it can get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You can think of your heart as a big field generator. All the time breathing. Throat is another good area to just check how it is for you. Throat is one of the kind of interfaces with the world. It's where your inside communicates to the outside. Depending on how that is for you, that can be tight, held back, constricted. So the same again, the more you put your attention on it, the more it will begin to ease. Then as you travel up into your head, you can begin to get a sense of your head being like a balloon that's lifting towards the ceiling. And see how that affects your spine. It'll just naturally bring your spine more erect. Spine wants to be reasonably erect. And rather than forcing it to be erect, feeling like your head is lifting just naturally straightens you out. You might need to adjust the way you're sitting just to sort of facilitate that. Now, the focus of this particular meditation is to do with communication. So if you cast your mind back to what was like before you closed your eyes, whatever environment that you were in. So if you were in a room on your own with a device, whether that's a laptop or a tablet or a phone, then just sort of take a note of that. And you could think of that as in front of the scenes or in front of the curtain. And where you are now is descending deeper into behind the scenes or behind the curtain. And in the same way that you are checking in with different parts of your body to let them ease, now I'd like you to put your attention on your hands. So if your hands are joined together, if you could uncross them and you can just rest them somewhere on your thighs if you like. And just put your attention into the sensation in your hands. And just take note of the difference between the sensation in the front of your hands and the back of your hands. And if you let go of the shape of your hands or what you think the shape of your hands is, and just let the sensation inform you. You may find, or I find anyway, that the front of my hand feels a lot bigger than the back of my hand. Like 2 or 3 times bigger. So much more sensation in the front of my hand than on the back of my hand. Even if I turn my hands over, still feel a lot more sensation in the front of my hand. So if you can just take like a mental note of what the sensation of your hands feels like, because we're going to need it in a minute. Just take a mental note of what it feels like in your hands, what that sensation feels like taking an internal snapshot. So now we've been sort of working behind the scenes for a little while now. And behind the scenes, there's 2 big differences between in front of the scenes when you have your eyes open and behind the scenes. One is that time is different here, and the other is that space is different here. So in front of the scene, you're in your room or wherever you are, and you're in whatever country you are. But behind the scenes, you can connect. There's no limits on time and space. Now, if you're watching the video and you're going, hang on, what's the story? Make a little arrangement with your mind that just for this meditation, you're going to think about all this stuff afterwards, but just for now, you're just going to go with the sensation and see what you feel. So if you want to reach your hands out on either side of you and just hold the intention that you'd like to connect with me. We start with me. And using that reference that you had for your hands, see if you can feel something else, something that wasn't there before when your hands were just, when you weren't intending to connect with me. And you can do this when you're watching the video as well. Again, just make a deal with your mind to have think about it afterwards, but just for now, because that's the other thing, time operates differently here. So you can still connect with me. Now, the thing is, don't imagine it. Don't imagine a connection, because our minds are very quick. We can imagine all sorts of things really fast. But you can kind of let that the feeling of connection seep into your hands. It's generally the way it goes. Slowly, you get a sense of, yeah, my hand, I had that reference for what my hands felt like, the sensation of my hands felt like. And now that's there, but then there's also something else. That'll be me. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can still connect with me, because behind the scenes, space operates differently. And if you're watching the video, time operates differently as well. And if you've done this before, you can allow the sensation to travel up your arms. The sensation of connection. It's easier to feel it initially in your hands, but if you get used to it, you can allow it to come more into your body. Keep checking your body, letting go of tension as well. Just keep that scanner kind of going. Don't allow any new tension to come in. Keep breathing. And now see if you can include the other people in the group. Be the same again. Like there's the reference for what my hands, the sensation of my hands were like. There's that other one that is possibly John. And then there's some other people there as well. Same if you're watching the video, you can do this as well. The more behind the curtain you go, the more behind the scenes you go, the more fluid everything is. So you don't have to arrange everybody in a circle or anything like that. You can just hold the intention that you'd like to connect with the other people in the group, and you will be able to. And now you can expand that to include across time. You can include all the people who are going to watch the video. You can get a sense of them. Same again, if your mind gets a bit worked up about that, you can just arrange to think about it afterwards. But for now, just let yourself feel whatever you feel. And if you're watching the video, you can do that as well. You can get a sense of everyone who's going to watch the video. And you can also get a sense of everyone who has watched the video before you. And the thing is, you can do this on your own whenever you meditate. You can have this as the focus of your meditation. Because you may have heard of people who've had profound realizations. They've gone on a fast for 40 days, or they've gone on an ayahuasca ritual, or they've gone through some big personal change and came out of it going, they realized that we were all connected, that we're all one. I'd say things like, I looked into this old lady's eyes and she was me and I was her. Or I looked into the eyes of a dog and the dog was me and I was the dog. And I looked at the whales and there was no difference between the whales and me, the sea and the trees, and we're all connected, which is a beautiful realization. But the thing is, they, when they're looking at the woman, they didn't merge with the woman. They didn't like blend into her. They didn't blend into the tree physically. It's not like they put their hand inside the tree or were joined. Where they experienced that connection, that knowledge of oneness, is where you are now, behind the scenes. And the more you dip into it, the more you hold it as an intention as you're meditating, the stronger it will get for you. Or really what'll happen is you'll become more aware of it. But the lovely thing about it is that as you settle into it, you realize that you're never alone, never truly alone. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a desert, you always have access to this behind the scenes connection, this aspect of the connection. Because if you remember, we started off just kind of focusing on what was in front of the scenes kind of connection, wherever you are, the device. And now you've gone into this other aspect of the communication that's going on. So you're never alone. There's always something, someone, always friendly energies to connect to behind the scenes. So depending on how familiar you are with meditation, you can come back in a number of different ways. If you're newish to meditation, then you may have had a feeling of going somewhere, like you've gone deeply into yourself, or you've gone deep in some way. If you have that feeling and it's kind of new for you, then take a bit of time to come back from there before you open your eyes. If you're a bit more advanced or familiar with meditation, you've been doing it for a couple of years, then you can just open your eyes because that feeling of descent is just that. It's just a feeling. These states that you can go into and connect with, they're available all the time. Eyes open, eyes closed, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go anywhere. There's no time. It's immediately available to you. So in the same way, you can help to realize that more by just opening your eyes. And if as soon as you open your eyes, you lose the connection with the inner state, you're like, oh, no, it's gone. I'm just completely sucked out of my eyeballs into this beautiful illusion. Then you can just close your eyes again. Oh, yeah, there it is. Open them again. No, lost it. Close them again. You can use your eyes like a valve to equalize and be able to hold the inner and the outer. Because that's one of the things that comes with meditation, is that you're able to hold the inner space and the outer space at the same time. And you can be what you would have called very deep, in a very deep place, and still be eyes open, having a conversation with your neighbor, or having a conversation with the sunrise, or whatever. Okay, so hello again. If you skipped forward to this bit, finish the meditation. As I say at the beginning of all these Zoom groups, the time of the guru is over. The time of the spiritual teacher is over. The time of the celebrity is over as well. It's getting over, particularly in the latest, these latest times, the last year, celebrities have all had to do this, what I'm doing, from home. There's very little difference now. Everyone's, it's part of this growth in consciousness that's going on. So as Thich Nhat Hanh said, the next Buddha is the community. And as Ram Dass said, we're all just helping each other home. So my role in this is really, I'm facilitating this group, and I'm happy to share my experiences, and I've had, lots of experiences, but there's no truth. There's no ultimate truth. There's just your truth. And all I'm doing is just sharing my experience. I'm not telling anyone what is the right thing or the wrong thing or what's true or whatever. It's just me endeavoring to help everyone home, and you're helping me home as well. So with that said, I much prefer to talk about the sorts of things that are going on for you, concerns, feedback, anything you want to share about your own process. I'd rather hear that first anyway, and then I can get on to sorts of things that have been on my mind this week. So yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to share, whether they want to just send that through in a chat or turn the mic on, turn the camera on? It's up to you. Yep, fire ahead, Kathy.
Yeah. You know how you say, or we all say, there's us, and even in the meditation, you're saying there's like yourself, and then there are others, like connect to others. I'm just wondering whether it's helpful to think of it in a way that there's just me, and then everything else. Because every time I feel that something is outside of me, like, it's easier for me then to think of that person or something as separate from me rather than me. You know what I'm saying? So
keep going. I think I'm with you. Keep going.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've just been wondering every time I think. So I feel it's more helpful for me currently to think of me and then everything else, you know, everything I see, everything I feel is within me. Is that, yeah?
Yep.
And so it's just, you know, what we're seeing on the outside is just projection of that me. So
Yep.
there's no me and there's no you. There's just me. And
Yep.
everything else is what's really going on within me.
Yep.
Because every time I think of others, then there's that separation, and then I can, you know, then it's, you know, it's them doing this to me, or, you know what I mean? It's not what's happening in my world, really. I can separate it more easily, you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
my question is it more helpful just to become more aware that it's just, I don't know, because every time I think of when you say others, it's just like, you know, you say connect to me, like in the meditation, and I can feel that. But are we just connecting to another part of ourselves? I suppose is my question.
All right. I think, well, the way I think of it is that inside me, there's many me's. there's not just one.
Yeah.
There's all different parts of me with different
Mm-hmm.
levels of consciousness, with different perspectives. Some parts are very deep and very wise, and then other parts, like the part that's talking to you, are the least conscious part of me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're the part that has to interact with the world and pay the gas bill and talk to the neighbors and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of me is most identified with the idea of separation.
Mm-hmm.
So um, for me, I try as much as I can to include all the different bits of me.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be compassionate to wherever the different parts of me are at.
Mm-hmm.
So because the frontal part of me looks out into the world and it all seems separate, it's easier for that part of me to think about behind the scenes connections in that kind of way, and individuals, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm doing this meditation with John and I'm going to connect with John, you know, like from
Yeah.
your perspective, you know, and then I'm going to connect with the other people in the group. That's easy for that part of me to get behind because that's the way it thinks. There's another part of me that doesn't say anything, you know,
Mm-hmm.
very deep part of me. And it knows stuff that I can't really verbalize. And
Mm-hmm.
it knows what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's all me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the other thing that I find, though, I keep in my mind, particularly when I'm in the world and I am interacting with people,
Mm-hmm.
is that behind the scenes, we're all one, for sure. We're all, you know. But in as much as, you know, my system, my body is a bit like a glove puppet that I communicate through. And it's lined with different layers of consciousness, you know. And depending on how conscious or unconscious I am, you know, it often feels like, you know, the clouds going around the planet. If the clouds there's a lot of cloud cover, I'll be pretty unconscious for that day, you know. And then sometimes the clouds will part and it'll be quite
Mm-hmm.
clear. And I think about that when I'm interacting with other people, you know, because if
Mm-hmm.
you, doesn't matter who it is, and this doesn't generally happen in normal day to day, but if you've ever done it, if you've ever sat down and just looked into someone's eyes for a long period of time, meaning more than a quick, but actually maybe a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's very trippy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what starts off is you just see them and it's like that's sort of the person, but then the lot more that you look at them, their face starts to change shape and you start to see through almost to the other side of out the other side of existence, and you can kind of see something in there, something that you completely recognize. I mean, initially it'll be like, particularly if you have a bit of a problem with the person, when you start looking at them, you'll be like, this person, why did I end up having to look into the eyes of this person, But then that starts to fall away. Then you start to see their pain, and then you're like, oh my God, I never realized, how much pain this person's in, how much emotional pain this person's in. And then that fades away, and then you start to see deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you do that for long enough, you'll connect with, oh, we're the same. We are the same stuff. I see me. I recognize what I'm seeing, but that'll be coming from a very deep part of me, that kind of recognition. So if you find it helpful to think of it in terms of like, it's all me, fine. I just wouldn't hang on to it. That might be the way you think of it for the rest of your life, or it might be just for the rest of the week. Like with the trick or the difficulty with profound realizations is some parts can latch onto them as like, oh, that's it, now I've got it. That's the way I'm gonna, I've figured it out, I've got, and of course there's no certainty, particularly now, particularly in the current times. The time of certainty is over. We're right up against the fact that everything changes, so it's like, well, this is great for now. I think of everyone as me. That's really working for me now. It mightn't work tomorrow, and I'm quite willing to let go of it. I think if you can do that, then you can be fluid and flexible, and it's it will work for as long as it works for you, and then you can just let it go.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Does anybody else have anything else or anything that they want to?
Hi, John. Hi, Lynn. This
Hi,
is Sandy. I just was curious. Let's see if I can get I'm on my phone. Can maybe you talk about the parts, and conceptually, I understand what you're saying, and I have the experience of I maybe I struggle with we're all one, or I don't know. I get that we're made from the same place, and we come from that same place, and we go back to that same place to have this experience of illusion of separation. I conceptually get all that, and I hear you talking about even just if I looked at it from myself, looking at the parts of myself. Some of those parts, like my front speaking part to you, and I have the super deep knowing part, and then there's a lot of rogue parts in here. And even in the that just, if I start giving that attention, it almost seems to compound the sense of separation that I'm so desperately wanting to relieve. I don't know if you could talk more about that, but I mean, intellectually, I'm with you.
From what?
I follow you. Pardon?
Separation from what?
From the source, the animating life source of the unknown. It's truly beyond my perception. It's undefined, and I get that it's coming from something that I can't comprehend it, because as soon as I can comprehend it, it's not. I mean, it's something that it's in the manifest world on some level, right? I get all that intellectually. I understand.
Yeah.
But experientially in my body. So for me, I sent you an email because I didn't know if I was going to get here in time, but like I had this lovely experience last night sharing some space and with a friend of mine. He's a chiropractor of 30 years and is very, very proficient in energy work. And he was working with a friend of mine who has some severe physical challenges. And I was holding space and we were doing some movement and I wasn't even getting to say, I was just in the sidelines, right? And then I woke up this morning, it's like the dams broke. It's like, I feel all these nasty little parts of me, specifically in my spine and my back of my heart. And, I just want those parts that are hanging on. Just for so long, my position has been, I'm just going to relieve this strain or the stress. I want it to go away. And I get that even intensifies it and feeds it on some level. But just even defining it as a part of myself seems to be challenging. Or I don't know, like if I call this part behind my heart, it's just like it's like a clamp. It makes it feel even more clampy. And I don't know how to navigate some of these fractured or rogue parts and wanting to invite them back into the flow as they're ready. And again, I have this agenda, like, come on, let's get on board. Let's go, let's flow, let's get this experience, let's get going, and let's have this magic of life. And I may be not making sense now, but there's these fragmented parts of me that somehow are still hanging on to something that don't want to be part of the wholeness experience. Right. And so how to navigate and build trust with those parts. And, they're there for a reason. They weren't supported. They weren't resourced at the time. I could go through lots of memories, but they're parts of myself that feel contracted and that don't want no part of wholeness. Right. I think that's all. I don't know.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. Particularly when it's new, like when there's a new bit that you hadn't known before. Because the stuff you're familiar with is like, yeah, okay, I can work with that. But if it's new, it's like, oh God, that's been there the whole time and I didn't realize it. So, I mean, it sort of depends on where you, like, from what you're saying, it's like you get that it's, that, there are hurt parts of you, there are parts of you that you're not conscious of and that you don't have any control of. And they seem to be almost independent. They seem to be like they're trying to sabotage you in some way. It can feel like that. Well, that's part of becoming more conscious. It's not like, in some ways, it's not a theoretical thing. It's a very practical thing, like consciousness, becoming more conscious, and you're right at the coalface of that right now, because, the light of your consciousness has risen a little bit and it's illuminated. The circle of light is a little bit bigger. And there's things now that have come into the light that you didn't know were there before. They might have been operating in the dark behind the scenes, and you could maybe look back in your life and go, oh, okay, that was that. And you can see how that was operating. But now that, the light of your consciousness has risen a little bit. So the circle of light's got a bit bigger, I like that way of thinking about it for itself, because we're always on the edge, the edge of that light. In the center of the light, it's beautiful. It's like, oh, great, you're familiar with that part, but out at the perimeter, when the light, you're at the edge of that circle of light and it starts to fade into the dark. That's where it's always difficult, right? With the new stuff, because the new stuff is what's being transmuted or refined or changed from unconsciousness into consciousness. So initially they can feel, as you become aware of things, or as things are released and you become suddenly aware of them, you're like, oh my God, I never realized this, particularly, because if you've lived a while, the realization you had 20 years ago is added to by the realization you had 15 years ago. And then the one that you had 10 years ago is added to that. And you start to see a bigger pattern at work. And it can be, you know, particularly when you get a new one, it almost like makes the older ones all new again, you know, and you're like, oh God. And that's why I'm saying it's tricky. It's very hard to deal with. But the principle is still pretty much the same. Of like, you can talk about consciousness and love, to me they're the same thing. They're interchangeable. And I like that the two are interchangeable, because sometimes consciousness can seem a bit academic or something. It's like, or conceptual, you know, whereas when you talk about love, it, you know, it sort of resonates with my heart and gives me access in a way that I don't have if I think about consciousness. So the idea of, you know, if it's in you, it's part of you. Like, you know, it's not some other thing. It's part of the unconscious that you've taken on to deal with. So that's where I start from. And then it's like, well, it doesn't feel like me, and it seems to want to cause me pain. It's causing me pain, you know, here and these different parts of me, you know. It's like, well, that's the beginning of a conversation, and possibly a difficult conversation. But if I can come from, okay, this doesn't feel like me, it doesn't feel like part of me, but I know it is me. It's just a very alienated part of me, and it's a part of me that I haven't really connected with in a long time, maybe never. And this is the beginning of the conversation. And the beginning of the conversation can possibly be explosive and difficult, and a lot of shouting and a lot of abuse. Meaning, why haven't you listened to me before? Why has it taken you all this time for you to hear me? You know, it could be a lot of attitude. So like what I do is I just try and sit with it as best I can, you know. It not to be masochistic about it, like physically, you know, like if I can alleviate the pain in some way or another, I'll do that. But not from the point of suppressing the feedback. It's more just, I can't function if I'm in extreme pain, so I have to, you know, try and mitigate that in some way or another. But I will not try and turn away from the conversation. I will try and hear it and listen to it as best I can. And it is a bit like, you know, putting layers of paint on. You know, you can't get it all on in one go. You have to sort of put one coat on, let it dry, and then the next coat. So it's like it's not, you know, you have this one insight and that's it, all the pain goes away. It can be a process of returning to it. Like, there are things that I have been working on, consciously working on, probably my whole life, and each new insight just puts a different complexion on it. And, you know, it's like slowly transforming, refining, becoming conscious. You know, does that help?
Yes, it does. I appreciate the point of the suppression, like suppressing the feedback, because that's where I go. Is I just want it to shut up and let's get busy, and in that disassociation, there's the feedback loop gets interrupted, and so it just goes, it's like it goes more rogue, basically. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, like when we talk about these parts of ourselves as hurt children, it's kind of, it's true, but it also can create this misconception of that they're powerless or they're little parts of us. They're like huge children. These are subconscious things, you know, and our subconscious is way more powerful than our conscious mind. So if we even though it can feel chaotic, you know, and you know, a lot of anger and a lot of rogue behavior, as you said, that's the only way that I had to communicate at the beginning. And they are hurt parts of us and they are kid parts of us. And if you know that, then you can kind of like probably the worst thing you can do is to try and tell them to stop because that will just be like, it's been hard enough for them to communicate with you to begin with. And then if you try and, you know, adult them, meaning, you know, the way you're communicating with me is unacceptable. I don't like it. Could you communicate in a better way? They'll just go crazy. They'll just go ballistic, you know, because, you know, if you understand how these kind of things are formed, they're usually formed from trauma of one kind or another. And, you know, there's a, you know, to kind of like break it down really to sort of simple, you know, let's say you're, my case, you're a little boy and you're about to do something that you know, or you're doing something. Let's say, like I had an instant where I was, I think it was the first time I kind of figured I became aware of steam. So there was a pot on the stove and I was like looking at the steam coming out the side of the pot. I was like, this is amazing, you know? So I think I was 5 or 4 or something like that. I got a chair, I brought it over to the stove. I climbed up on the chair. I was in my little shorts, you know, and I was just looking at the steam. Very curious, you know, looking at the steam. And the next thing from behind me, I heard my mother shrieking, right? So I, you know, got a big fright and I was pulled off the chair really, not violently, but, you know, very suddenly, right? And I was put on the ground and I was like, you must never, ever do that again, right? I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, because it wasn't explained to me. It's the steam, you know, it's like, you must never do that again, right? So what happened in my little brain was, because the thing with kids is, and it's good to like think of it like a kid, because if you think of things like as an adult, you won't get it. But if you think of it as for the way a kid's mind's work is, kids sort of look at the adults and somewhere in their instinct, like an instinct that an animal would have, a kid knows that it has to be able to get to safety, or it has to find a safe place. Like animals generally know where like foxes go to their set, I think it's called, and bears know where their cave is. Even little bears, they know how to get to the cave, right? That's their instinct to get to safety. We can't do that. We have to get safety to come to us. We have to get our parents to come to us. So it's really important for little kids, little even babies, to know that they can get the safety thing going. And if they can't, they get really distressed, like seriously distressed, like physiologically distressed. So there I am. I've just been yanked off the chair and told I must never do that again, right? So immediately I'm going, okay, this person that is shouting at me is the source of food and love. And without those two things, I am going to die. I'm going to be destroyed. So they are looking very angry, and they don't normally look angry. So whatever the hell I just did caused this, okay? Now, they say I must never do that again. Now, so what I do, now this all happens really fast, but I'm just slowing it down, right? Now, what happened? Well, I was curious and I was feeling a bit adventurous and I was feeling actually a bit cocky because I thought, because I was really pleased that I'd figured out about the chair. Like, as I was looking at it going, I want to see that thing closer. How do I do that? I don't know. And then it was like, if I brought that chair over, and I was like, wow, well done. That's very good. That's very clever. I climb up on the chair and I'm like having this great adventure. So little me goes, okay. That's what she's upset about, being adventurous. I must never be adventurous again. That's what it is. Now, if I forget this and I'm adventurous again, she's going to withdraw love and food and I'm going to be destroyed. So I can't leave it up to my memory. I have to make it part of my instinct. From now on, I'm going to make it part of my, deep hardware, the sort of hardware that keeps me breathing when I'm asleep and pulls my hand out of the fire when I stick it in. So now let me just reiterate it again. Now, what was it? I was being adventurous, so I must never be adventurous. And if I'm ever adventurous, all my alarm bells need to go on because it's serious. Okay. So fast forward, this wasn't the case with me, I don't think, not obviously anyway, but fast forward, we kind of just from treating people, this is kind of the way it goes. That person would always have difficulty with change. And with, you know, if they saw a new job that they wanted to get, they might go to the interview, but then as they got closer to making the change, they would start to sabotage themselves, or what they would call sabotage themselves. Because what happens is that part of me that I took off to one side and said, now you make sure I'm never adventurous again. That kind of part was like, okay, fine. And it operated unconsciously, just kept going all through my childhood, kept me safe. Anytime I got adventurous, no, all the alarm bells went off and I stepped back from the edge of jumping off the building or whatever it was I was doing as a kid. But then as I went into adolescence, it started to you know, affect, like I would have been afraid to go towards girls, and I would have been afraid to go on holidays, and started to judge myself and go, what is wrong with me? God, I can't seem to just, you know, do stuff. Other people just can do it. I just get really anxious whenever I have to do anything. I get really anxious. What's wrong with me, right? So this part of me that's been just doing what I was told has to listen to me now, bad mouthing it, which I told it to take care of me. It's been taking care of me. And now I'm complaining about it because I've forgotten, right? It's gone out of my mind, but it's gone, well, I'm just doing my job. God, every time I do what he told me to do, it's like, well, you know, he's complaining. Now he's going to see a therapist for it. You know, he's trying to, you know, he's just really bad mouthing me the whole time. So I get to a point, right, where, you know, I can't get married because I'm afraid. I can't go on holidays. Maybe I become agoraphobic. It just gets worse and worse, right? And the reason it won't change is because it was programmed with life and death urgency. And as adults, we find it very hard to get that worked up about anything. You know, we think we can think it our way. We think we can, you know, just think our way through. So depending on what way you access that, but if you manage to access it, it will explode because it's been charged with, you know, this life or death energy, and it's been stored up for all this time, and it's been listening to you badmouth there. It's been listening to me badmouthing it all this time. So the initial communication is going to be fury because it's like, you know, it has a bad opinion about you because it's, you know, you've gone from one thing to changing it to this other thing. You gave it the job. It's been doing it faithfully. And now you're complaining about it. So, you know, if it was talking to me, it'd be like, well, you know, I don't take you seriously. I don't trust you. You're a bit of an idiot. You know, why should I, you know, communicate to you? It would sound like it's completely separate part of me, but it's not. It's just a part of me that I separated a long time ago, and that it's taken me all this time to begin to get into a conversation with it. So whenever that sort of thing starts to happen for me, that's the way I approach it. I'm very understanding, or I try to be, even if it's causing me pain, physical or emotional pain, and I understand where the disturbance is coming from. But for me, I take a lot of comfort from the fact that the communication has started, that it is feeling safe enough to begin to unravel and go, you're an idiot, even though that's not really what I want to hear, but it's the beginning of a communication. And then over time, I can kind of help it to see that things have changed. I can stand on a chair now and look at a pot. It's not going to be the end of the world. And, you know, I'm an adult now and things are different, you know. Does that help?
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. I lots of pieces that I'm trying to hang on. Lots of pieces about the what really was profound. I had a moment with the feedback about it. It's became programmed to be an instinct. It's like your base operating system. It went in at that level, and it was activated with a trauma response or life and death, and that explains a lot to me. So yeah, no, it was really helpful and very thought-provoking. Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, knowing that it's programmed with that is really helpful, because it's not going to relinquish, it's not going to stop doing what it was asked to do easily. it almost, you have to, like, that's often, you know, there are some therapies, you know, like primal scream therapy, that kind of thing. And part of the how they work is that you build up enough energy inside that you are kind of on the edge of life or death kind of energy. It's like that level of intensity, and that can break it open, you know. I mean, craniosacral work is much gentler, but when it's happening, it's the same thing. But if you understand that it's not just going, like you going, oh, you know, I know it's okay, you don't need to do that anymore. It's not going to change because of that, you know. It needs time and demonstration, you know, and that's where you can bring the other parts in to help with that, you know. You can kind of go, look, see, no threats. It's actually a lovely day. I am actually quite safe. And look, this age, I managed to live this long, you know, so I think moving forward, I'll probably be okay. But, you know, it takes a while. It can take a long, long time, you know. Right.
Thank you. No, that's very, very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. A few different things. Well, just because we were talking about being an adult and being a grown up, one thing that it's not so much been in my mind, but it did kind of come up earlier on today when I was thinking about different things that might be good to chat about. And it's this idea of being an adult and looking into how do you know that you're an adult? Because I know for myself, like, and I think this is probably relevant for people who are in further emergence or who find their way to this video or whatever, that I know, like, I was born in the 60s, early 60s. And if you've ever seen Mad Men, that TV show, that's a good idea. That I really resonate with that, meaning that's what my childhood was like. So I was a little person looking around, and all the adults seemed crazy. But in the, like I was just talking about how we decide things as kids. Like if a child finds itself in a situation where the adults are abusive or in some way or another, or say in an abuse situation, very quickly what happens in the child is they'll go, okay, so there's one of two possibilities here. One possibility is that there's something wrong with the adults. The other possibility is that there's something wrong with me. So, somebody's saying the video is freezing. Were you able to hear me okay, or was it just the picture was frozen? I'll keep going and you can let me know. So it's either there's something wrong with the adults or there's something wrong with me. So if there's something wrong with the adults, I'm screwed because I rely on them for love and food. So if there's something wrong with them, I'm in the sort of danger that I can't deal with all day long. I could maybe, you know, deal with it for 10 minutes, but not all day long. So I'm going to decide that it's me. The problem is with me. That way I can deal with it. I can, you know, deal with it. There's something wrong with me. That's just between me and me. And I'm not going to be destroyed by that. I'm just going to be disturbed by it. You know? So that's generally what kids do. They'll go, it's me. There's something wrong with me. So I'm a little person looking at all the adults going, they're crazy. You know, they're slapping me. I don't understand the way they're behaving. It's all kind of crazy, right? So some part of me was like, I never want to be one of them. I never want to be an adult. It looks terrible. So at some stage, though, you have to kind of go, like, as you grow, like, I know for me, there's a part of me still in there going, well, I don't want to be an adult. You know, that's kind of Peter Pan kind of complex. I don't want to be an adult because it's thinking about the adults back then, you know. But you can, like, this all kind of happened for me when I was around 40. I realized, I don't know how I came to this, but I think I must have been reading about other cultures, and particularly cultures that have rites of passage from childhood into adulthood. You know, I mean, there's like lovely stories about, you know, tribes who live in the jungle, and the young man has to go out and do stuff and build a house and hunt a bear and whatever. You know, there's a system thing that they go through. Whatever it is, when they've done it, they come back and it's like, that's it now. He's done the thing. He's a man. And there's similar ones for women as well. And I mean, I'd heard about them, you know, long before I was 40, but they didn't resonate with me. But I think maybe it was 40. I suppose I kind of went, wow, I'm 40. Does that mean I'm an adult? I don't know. I don't know if I'm an adult. No one ever told me I was an adult. I never had a rite of passage. I never had that. That just wasn't in my culture, you know. Now, my father died when I was 11, but you know, I've talked to my brothers, my older brothers, and like, no, there was no rite of passage for them. It just wasn't in any of my culture. Like, in any of my friends, no. I mean, we had the Catholic stuff, which was like Holy Communion and then confirmation, but none of that was to do with becoming an adult. It's not like you had your confirmation and suddenly you were an adult. Nope. You know, and I mean, I did hear it a little bit with some friends whose fathers brought them for a pint. But I mean, that's not really a big ritual, you know. That's not like you're a man now, you know. So I think it's a good question to wonder about, like, are you an adult? Do you know that you're an adult now? And if you don't know that, what kind of rite of passage would you like to have, you know? Like for myself, I got right into this thing and I was like, okay, no one's going to do it for me, you know. I'm 40 now. It's a bit late for going off into the jungle to hunt a bear and build a cave or whatever. Plus, I don't want to do any of those things because it wouldn't mean anything to me. So I decided to get a tattoo. And I'd never had a tattoo before. And I don't even think it was kind of cool and trendy the way it is now. I just kind of thought, yeah, I think that would mean. So I designed it myself, this lovely Celtic thing, and it was big. Like, it kind of goes all over my shoulder, onto my back, and then down this arm, right? If I'd ever had a tattoo, I probably wouldn't have designed it that big. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do this, and this will be my rite of passage for me as a man. So I'm going to get this, and it'll remind me I am a man now, and I'll be, you know, an adult. And I mean, it was hilarious because it took 5 hours to do it. And I went into shock after it because getting a big tattoo like that it's no joke. But I was really happy with it. I'm like, I didn't know I was in shock until I left the tattoo place. And then I started shaking as I was driving home. I was like, oh, okay, I think there's something going on here. And yeah, it was pretty intense for the rest of that night. But it was a lovely thing to do for myself. And it's sad, like, that we don't have rites of passage anymore, certainly not in the West. But I think I found it very beneficial thing to do, to consciously go, yeah, I'm an adult. I mean, I still have that part of me inside that's going, I don't want to be an adult. I want to be a grown up. But now I understand what that's about. And it's about what was being sold to me as adulthood was kind of bullshit. And it was a facade of solemnity and seriousness and pretending to be grown up, which has nothing to do with being an adult and nothing to do with, you know, maturing, you know. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about all that? No? Okay. All right. Well, we wrap it up for now. Yeah. Thanks very much for coming to Zoom group, and see you next week for some more. Bye.